Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Hari. Now you can be where you are. I need him here. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Hari. Slow down. Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Kiri Varadari Jaya Giri Varadari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Kiri Varadari Jaya Kiri Varadari. Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari. You all fell asleep. Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Kiri Radhari Jaya Kiri Varadari Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Kiri Varadari Jaya Kiri Varadari Yashodanandana Rajadana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajadana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjanya Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjanya Yamunatira Manachari Yamunatira Manachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rāma Hare Rāma Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Hare Rāma, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Hare Rāma, Rama Rama, Hari Hare. Radha, Govinda Radha, Govinda Radhe. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Gora Haribo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Jai Vishnupad Brahmam Supriv Jakacharya Asto Tartatashi Śrimad Ditya Leela Pravisna Om His Divine Grace Shilabai Charana Arvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Iskant BBT Founder Acharya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Antaraj Śrimad Bhāgavatam Ki Jai. Her Divine Lordship Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Haribol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Make this louder. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tatojayam Udirayet. Nastapareshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Reading from the Śrimad Bhāgavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 9. No, Chapter 23, Text 8. Conversation between Manu and Kardama. Okay, that's right. Why? Tavat Prasano Bhagavan Pushkaraksha Krite Yuge Darshayam Asha Tam Shata Shabdam Brahma Tadhad Vapu Tavat Prasano Bhagavan Pushkaraksha Krite Yuge Darshayamasatam Shata Shabdam Brahma Dadhad Vapu Tavat Pasano Bhagavan Pushkaraksha Krite Yuge Darshayam Asatam Shata Shabdam Brahma Dadhad Vapu Tavad Pasano Bhagavan Pushkaraksha Krite Yuge Darshayamasyam Shata Shabdam Brahma Dadad Vapu Okay. Tavat, then, Prasanna, being pleased. Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pushkara Aksha, lotus-eyed. Krite Yuge, in the Satya Yuga. Darshayam Masa, showed. Tam, to that Kardama Muni. Shata, O Vidura. Shabdam, which is to be understood only through the Vedas. Brahma, the absolute truth. Dadhat, exhibiting. Vapu, his transcendental body. Then, in the Satya Yuga, the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead, being pleased, showed himself to that Kardama Muni and displayed his transcendental form, which could be understood only through the Vedas. Could everybody move more this way? Like right center. Thank you. Please repeat. Then in the Satya Yuga, the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead, being pleased, showed himself to that Kardama Muni and displayed his transcendental form, which can be understood only through the Vedas. purport by His Divine Grace, ISKCON's founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada. Here, 2 points are very significant. The first is that Kardama Muni attained success by yoga practice in the beginning of Satya Yuga, when people used to live for 100,000 years. Kardama Muni attained success, and the Lord, being pleased with him, showed him his form, which is not imaginary. Sometimes the impersonalists recommend that one can arbitrarily concentrate one's mind in some form he imagines or which pleases him. But here it is very clearly said that the form which the Lord showed to Kardama Muni by His divine grace is described in the Vedic literature, Shabda Brahman. The forms of the Lord are clearly indicated in the Vedic literature. Kardama Muni did not discover any imaginary form of God as alleged by rascals. He actually was the eternal, blissful, and transcendental form of the Lord. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umlitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Nyena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Didati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapanakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vidhamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Jayatam Sarito Pangor Mama Manda Matergati Matsarvasva Padambojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Brindaranya Kalpadrumada Śrimad Ratnagara Sringhasanasto Śrimad Radha Shilagovinda Devo Prastalabi Savyamano Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Bamsi Bhattitatasditaha Karshan Venu Svanar Gopir Gopinatha Striyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshvari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripasandubhyevacha Titanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tavat Pasano Bhagavan Pushkaraksha Krite Yuge Darshayam Asatam Chata Shabdam Brahma Didad Vapu. Then in the Satya Yuga, the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead, being pleased, showed himself to that Kardama Muni and displayed his transcendental form, which can be understood only through the Vedas. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskita Deshatarane. So the description of Kardama Muni's meditation, devotional meditation upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And here, the result, the Lord is appearing to him. Again, as we were mentioning last time, Srila Prabhupada was compiling this third canto after spending 2 to 3 years preaching here in the United States. In 1968, he had gotten quite a good whiff or view of what the people of the time were all about and into, and not just the place and the time, but just the standard position of the fallen conditioned soul, what type of maya, what type of illusion they can be in. Even the illusion that the Supreme Personality, the illusion that the part and parcel of Krishna, becoming the fallen conditioned soul, can get into, that has to be created and facilitated and supplied by the Lord. Just we were hearing earlier how Lord Rāma had to create the different types of nescience and illusion by which the conditioned soul could exist under. Why is it that we can't remember who we were in our previous lives? Because if we did, it would be a great impetus to, as quickly as possible and as sincerely as, and in a sincere attempt as possible, to break that illusion and conditioning. Later, when in this canto, when Kapila Muni is describing the plight of the fallen soul in the womb, I believe it's the chapter Adverse Fruitive Activities, he can remember, if he's fortunate, he can remember his past 100 births, and he grieves wretchedly, praying very sincerely to relieve him from this horrible condition, being trapped within the womb, and promising very, very sincerely that upon release that he will be 100% fixed in devotional service without deviation. So actually, that is a very good symptom for a candidate coming to Krishna consciousness, that right from the earliest time of life, because taking birth is a very severely traumatic experience. And if that remembrance of that suffering and of those prayers made to the Supreme Personality of Godhead are not forgotten, if not, in the most, actually, if one is in very elevated consciousness, then the pangs of birth will not be experienced in a similar way to the conditioned soul. We see when pure devotees take their birth, they are in a category completely unto themselves, completely different. But one who is advanced to a certain degree, it's described, Srila Prabhupada says, one cannot take to devotional service unless one has had previous contact with it, becoming a Drita Brata, taking to devotional service with determination. So therefore, how important it is for already established devotees to appear before the fallen conditioned souls, or in plain language, going out in public as much as possible to give the opportunity, arguably or seemingly small as it is, svalpamapyasya dharmasya, for the fallen conditioned souls to have some contact with devotional service, which will be their only asset and tangible gain of function, gain of value, let's say, to show what they have done in this life, to purchase or to warrant their higher standard of elevation in the next place. And of course, all standard elevation is based on being able to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's what we're hearing here. This is very, very beautiful. Not only Satya Yuga, but the beginning of Satya Yuga. How is it described? That at the completion of, so the one yuga to the next, irreligion is introduced by 1/4. So the beginning of Satya Yuga, everything is 100%. And towards the end of Satya Yuga and Treta Yuga begins, 25% irreligion and vice is introduced. Still very high, 75%. I mean, like here we are in this Kali Yuga, which is very rapidly advancing, and there's reasons for that, which are ultimately good, so that Lord Chaitanya can make his triumphant mark on the entire universe and introduce the golden age, 10,000 years. But of 432,000 years, and this is only the 5,000th year point, my goodness gracious. So if we were to say, well, you could have Treta Yuga at 75%, we'd all raise our hand, okay, I'll take it. But no, on the platform of actual cent% pure devotional service, the atmosphere is by far, is not even comparison to what is the beginning of Satya Yuga. Here, Kardama Muni is spending, what is it said? 10,000 years. And previously it was mentioned, who was it? Who performed for 60,000 years. Prabhupada said if one lives for 100,000 years, then to dedicate 10, 20, or 30,000 years to meditation is not a big deal. Just like devotees take to devotional service, or the brahmacharya ashram. Okay, I've been a brahmacharya for, I'm not recommending this, I'm just saying that this is kind of a thinking and a manifestation. All right, I've been a brahmacharya for 9 years, 10 years, so now it's time to move on to the next stage. So if we're only living, we're supposed to live 100 years, but that's quite a miracle these days. You live like 70 years, 80 years. Oh my goodness, you live to be, so 10 out of 80 is 1/8. What's the percentage of that? Like 12% or something like that. Pretty good amount of time to invest. And it is clearly mentioned throughout this section, these verses, which actually this is the last one, starting from tomorrow, verse 9, the description, very detailed description of the form of the Lord who appeared before Kardama Muni on the back of Garuda is described. So he achieved success because his meditation was based on a devotional motivation. Also could be mentioned that why is an impersonal meditation, or as particularly described here, imaginary meditation, so wrong and so crazy? Because it has nothing to do with devotional service. So sincere persons who met His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada and pointed out to them very clearly that meditation means to meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead in love. Malati Devi Dasi, in her memoir, she says that meeting Srila Prabhupada, it was very clear that I had never been loved in my entire life until I met His divine grace. And that is the standard realization of so many of Srila Prabhupada's direct disciples and subsequent followers, including myself. And that love reciprocating from His divine grace, Srila Prabhupada, which simultaneously and individually or separately is the love of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada is loved by Krishna so much that whatever standard or application and procedures for those who would take Srila Prabhupada's shelter, his disciples, he authorizes. Krishna very, very happily and practically speaking without question or even thinking too deeply about it or analyzing it from Krishna's side, he accepts. So throughout this section, Prabhupada spares the impersonalist and the Mayavadi and the false meditator and the imaginary concoctor no expense and completely exposes their nonsense. At the end of the verse yesterday, perfection is only attained by those who are surrendered souls. Where there is no mention of the personality of Godhead, where is their surrender? Surrender to what? To whom? Hippies, Mayavadis, impersonalists, they don't like the word surrender. The very concept is just abhorrent. We're giving out the perfection of yoga. World-renowned yoga master points out that beyond all the rules and regulations of yoga, real yoga means eternal, lasting, loving union with the Supreme. And where there is no meditation upon the personality of Godhead, where is the yoga practice? So meditation upon Krishna, which is the highest meditation, even greater than meditation upon the form of Lord Narayan, ultimately is based on the topmost form of love of Godhead, prema. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I can't reference the exact writing where this appears, but this is very interesting. It's titled, Krishna is the Only Object of Prema, by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Of all the conceptions in this world related to the supreme truth, the concept of Sri Krishna's form is the most suitable object in regard to pure and spotless prema. It is not possible for prema to be experienced with Allah, the object of worship in the Quran. Even the Lord's dear friend, Prophet Muhammad, could not directly see the Svarup of the Lord. Because even though the Lord understands the friendly sentiments of the worshiper towards him, he remains far from the worshiper who has feelings of great reverence toward him. The Christian God similarly remains a very distant entity or tattva, what to speak of the formless Brahma aspect. Even the personal incarnation of Narayan is not the form by which jivas can most easily attain pure prema. Only Sri Krishna, who is always residing in his transcendental abode of Sri Vrindavan, is the direct object of this pure prema. So we are very fortunate that we have met Srila Prabhupada, not just a pure devotee, but the long-predicted and heralded empowered personality who would spread the movement of Lord Chaitanya all over the world and all over the universe. Even senior devotees of this movement, one in particular in the 1980s, came out with the realization, and all of the contemporary Vaishnavas lauded this realization, that Narada Muni's instruction to Srila Vyasadeva, even before the Śrimad Bhāgavatam was compiled, in other words, those instructions were to impel and inspire to have Srila Vyasadeva compile the ripened fruit of the Vedas, compiled in his maturity. And what is that? And Srila Prabhupada put it in the preface to the Śrimad Bhāgavatam and took great stock in this statement of Narada Muni that his mission would be successful by the only thing I'm coming with. He had a bag of cereal, and what else did he have? He had the books. Just the possession of the books gave him confidence. And it's very nice how in the editing of the Hare Krishna, the mantra, the movement, and the Swami who brought it all movie, Prabhupada leaving India, the Jaladuta ride coming to America. So Prabhupada's own statements, recorded statements, are interspliced. So when I completed the third volume of the Śrimad, of the first canto, then Guru Maharaj said, you can go to America. You should go to America. Not the whole Śrimad Bhāgavatam, just the first canto. And Prabhupada even encouraged that I've given everything in this first canto. Even if there's nothing more, that's enough for you to go back home, back to Godhead. When Shishi, London, Ishvar were finally, miraculously, and triumphantly established in December 1969, and Prabhupada had been there for 3 months. He arrived on September 11th, 1969, and left on the few days after the installation of the deities in mid-December. And Yamuna Devi was left as the head pujari until she and all the other, her illustrious contemporaries, were called to be the World Sankirtan Party for Prabhupada in India just less than 1 year later. The Prabhupada was taking his last darshan of the deities, and he said to her that if you simply read the books that I've translated, even the Krishna book had not come out yet by that time, that is enough for you to go back home, back to Godhead. Do it. This is a quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati that was put in The Harmonist, which was a monthly English periodical meant for English intelligentsia. The Lord desires that His words be preached to all living beings. A day will come when His words will be preached all over the world through the medium of all languages, including the language of the animals and plants, even when that is practicable. Gaurasundar will, in the fullness of time, raise up preachers in every part of the world and in numbers amply sufficient for His purpose. So, Prabhupada stressed, he gave us deity worship with all the proper rules, regulations, and applications for our circumstances and time and place. But he stressed, or simultaneously, along with the deity worship, that worship of Krishna and pleasing His deity form is simultaneously done through active service, of which preaching is the chief. Prabhupada very much stressed transcendental book distribution and described it as the most sublime and elevated meditation. In the second chapter of the prayers for the demigods for Lord Krishna in the womb, the demigods are glorifying the Lord, they're glorifying the devotees who hear and chant and cause others to hear and chant, are recognized by you as your real servitors. So Prabhupada in that purport, the word kriyasu, by manual labor or work, in this connection is very significant. In our Krishna consciousness movement, all our activities are centered around distribution of Krishna literature, which also includes all outreach. But the distribution of information that people can, one who reads Bhagavad Gita verily worships me by his intelligence. Take the book home and read it. Yes, it's online. Here is the link. Let them put their mind. If one, If one comes to understand the supreme mercy, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, you will find them strikingly wonderful. One can approach anyone and induce him to take and read Krishna literature so that in the future they may become a devotee. By fully concentrating on distributing books for Krishna, one is in samadhi. And Srila Prabhupada himself demonstrated that meditation upon fulfilling the order of the Lord, the order of his spiritual master, giving everything towards that. Kaviraj Goswami says, one who sacrifices his wealth, his intelligence, his words, his reputation, everything for the Sankirtan movement is recognized by the Lord and endowed with his blessings. So just like as Kardama Muni, he approached the Lord and performed 10,000 years of meditation in a devotional mood. The Lord was satisfied with him and appeared to him. So we should be very, very enthusiastic and encouraged to give our life to Srila Prabhupada's Krishna consciousness movement, and rest assured that we will achieve all success in having a spiritualized mind, free from material desires, and being able to be in ecstatic, loving rapture upon Krishna and enter into his transcendental pastimes, which is the ultimate goal of life. Davatpasano Bhagavan Pushkaraksha Krite Yuge Darshayam Asatam Shata Shabdam Brahma Dadad Vapu. Then in the Satya Yuga, the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead, being pleased, showed himself to that Kardama Muni and displayed his transcendental form, which can be understood only through the Vedas. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, you told about surrender. Initially when surrender is little tough for everyone.
Well, you have to slow down. Surrender
Is very tough, for everyone to surrender completely.
for everyone.
Yeah.
Maybe for some easier, for others
Yeah,
harder, and
we see in Prabhupada disciples, especially you all coming from 1965, 1965s,
I can't hear.
1965s, and initial times, everyone used to surrender very easily. But then
Oh,
now everyone has so many reservations before surrendering. So can you just address this?
not necessarily. I mean, you have Bhakta Ryan here. He didn't put up too many conditions before surrendering. In fact, he wanted to surrender, and we said, well, you go home and come back like 2 or 3 times. And uh, well, the first thing that came to my mind is that, so we're hearing Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Lord Chaitanya will raise up sufficient numbers of people all over the world to fulfill his purpose. So, such a personality as Srila Prabhupada is coming. Govinda Dasi, when she heard of Prabhupada's struggle here in New York City, the first 1 year, what is this? This is the end of February. Prabhupada, in this month, in 1966, finally got his own apartment, room 301, in 100 West 72nd Street, completely free from the impersonalist Mayavad Mishra Yoga Society, after having to be dependent on their charity from October, November, December, January, to one of the coldest winters on record. There's the diary that Prabhupada kept, that the BBT made a very deluxe big book. It's called The Beginning. And Prabhupada, in one of his entries, I am troubled or disturbed by night starvation. His only cooked hot meal of the day, Prabhupada's not going to take rice and dal in a tiffin. You hear how if Prabhupada saw a devotee reheating rice, he would be very upset. Anyway, so the one cooked meal a day. And walking, and those of we've gone or have taken on that walk from 100 West 72nd Street to the place where he could cook and take a proper bath, 33 Riverside Drive. What would that be, to walk back and forth like that in a blizzard and snowstorm when it's like 15 degrees and like 20-mile-an-hour winds with gusts up to like 35? Would that be very pleasing, even with 8 layers of clothes and long underwear and wool socks and everything? So Govinda Dasi, when she said, when I heard this, my heart broke, because she served as Prabhupada's secretary servant for 1 year. She cooked, even Prabhupada went back to India to recover his health. Prabhupada, she was just making this prayer, but when he comes back, I just want to serve him. And Prabhupada, and this is another amazing excellence of Srila Prabhupada, he knew the mind of his disciples, even without them communicating. And from all across the world, Prabhupada writes back, I know your mind, and when I come back, you can again enter that position, which he actually had even greater than before when Prabhupada left. It was like briefly when San Francisco, but then through the whole year of 1968, then Prabhupada asked her and her husband Gaurasundar to establish Hawaii ISKCON. So the point is that Prabhupada needed help. So Krishna sent a lot of folks really quick and really fast. So what should I have to say to that? We should all become very, very sincere in wanting to serve Lord Chaitanya's mission like our beloved Srila Prabhupada did, and then there'll be more need for Krishna to send people to help us. So we shouldn't think it's other people's problems, it's our problem. Why am I not so surrendered that I'm not noticed by Lord Chaitanya, that I warrant having people come forward to help me? That would be more humble and a better, we might get more done thinking like that than think, what's wrong with everybody out there, you know? We can analyze that on many, anyway, that's what came to me. Hope you liked it, hope it was all right. Anything else, Prabhu, you wanted to say?
Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for a wonderful lecture. Um, to me, you look like Prabhupada. I don't know.
Hare Krishna, please, in front of the deities. Just
No, I don't know. I'm seeing you for the first time.
ask a
Okay.
question related to the
Yeah,
subject matter
the
in the
question I
class.
have
okay,
is,
please.
you spoke about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did some first 10,000 years of Kali Yuga.
What?
You said Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the first 10,000 years of Kali Yuga. You mentioned something about 10,000 years of Kali Yuga and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What was that? I didn't understand that.
Yes, that Srila Prabhupada spoke of this, and for the next 10,000 years, in certain places, but coming right to mind, Prabhupada's discussion with Allen Ginsberg in May 1969 in Columbus, Ohio, was talking about that Kali Yuga. So, from the time of Lord Chaitanya's appearance, coming to now 537 years ago, on March 6th, for 10,000 years, Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement will become the prominent dharma or spiritual activity on this planet. So that Kali Yuga is escalating more rapidly, this Kali Yuga, than a Kali Yuga where Lord Chaitanya and the Sankirtan movement are not present, is ultimately to facilitate the movement becoming so prominent and so strong. In other words, it's not a very superior thing which people don't have such qualification or ability to notice its superiority and want to speak of having a desire to institute it, is not really facilitated in this material world unless things get pretty bad first. You know, it's like when things are good, everything's fine. Why do I need something so high and lofty? And you know, you can't understand spiritual life unless you are materially exhausted. So in a position where materially everybody is, oh, this is great, everything's fine. That's why it's described that this earth planet is a more favorable position than the heavenly planets to take the devotional service, because in the heavenly planets, people are bewildered by the higher standard of material sense enjoyment. Bhogaishvarya Pashakdanam Dayapata Chetasam, in the minds of those who are too attached to material sense enjoyment and bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service does not take place. So when things are really, really bad, and people, then the bright, shining glory of that which is very good can be noticed and appreciated and strongly desired by everyone. Hare Krishna. 2 minutes over time, but Gopal Champu would like to put a coda. A coda is the final beautiful thing to the symphony.
So we hear how you can judge a thing by its results,
Yeah.
but then
Sometimes we can, but
sometimes
sometimes we don't know what the result is
there's
going
like
to.
two sides to this, because I mean, and you know, sometimes we hear, you know, you just go on with your devotional service whether the results come or not, and then sometimes Prabhupada will also say, okay, if something's not working, then you change it. So how do we understand?
Well, I mean, Prabhupada could say that his first 1 year in New York wasn't working. In fact, he was even going to the shipping company, when's the boat going back? But Prabhupada remarked, Sasra Maharaj would like, Prabhupada would say that I am reading, I'm writing, I'm doing devotional service so many ways. So in that way, Prabhupada wasn't outside of devotional service. So sometimes we're in a difficult situation, but we keep our standard of devotional service, our personal relationship with Krishna, keep cultivating it, deepening it, and at the right time, Krishna will make arrangements. I mean, your question can be analyzed from so many different angles of vision. Okay, we're trying with in such association, but such association doesn't seem to work, or it's not cooperating, or the people have another idea and they're going a different direction, and I'm not going to go the direction that they're going. So it might be time to just say, you go your way and I go mine, for example, in one scenario. But just sticking to your devotional service, no matter what. And Krishna himself says, if you become conscious of me, you will cross over all the obstacles of conditional life by my grace. But if you act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. If we start to doubt the standard application of devotional service because, quote unquote, it's not working according to our perception, and we want to change or dilute or introduce concoction in the name of popularity or catering to vox populi and popular taste. Maybe it might even seem popular or successful for a time, but ultimately it'll yield bitter fruits. And Kali Yuga is always looking to deviate the standard Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya and introduce karma, jnana, yoga, and all these different things which ultimately have nothing to do with devotional service. People of this world, they glorify and are very enthusiastic for all different types of things that have nothing to do with pleasing Krishna. Prabhupada at the Commonwealth Pier in Boston, 1968, he revisited the place where he landed in Boston. Amazing, the devotees. They were in an old school bus, and Prabhupada knew how to drive from Alston. You know, where is Alston? That's a little bit past BU. In Boston, one-way street, dead-end street, this way, that. It's just like complete confusion. There's no GPS. Prabhupada amazed all the devotees, make a left, make a right, go here, go there, So they're walking on the Commonwealth Pier. Have you ever been for the Prabhupada arrival in September, gone down there and they have a ceremony? Very awesome. Dawn and, all the harbor and all this, the harbor leading to the massive, endless ocean, and Prabhupada came here. Very deep thinking, deep meditation. So Prabhupada was silent, and finally he broke his silence and he said, he saw on a warehouse, unalloyed steel company. Prabhupada said, they have unalloyed steel, but we have unalloyed devotion. We want a certificate from Krishna that this man has done something for me. If a pack of asses, donkeys, jackasses, says you're good, what is that? But we want a certificate from Krishna that this man has done something for me. To please Krishna through purified senses, Tivrena Bhakti Yogena, unalloyed devotional service. Prabhupada was even thinking, all right, I distributed some Bhāgavatam sets, that's something, so I'll go back to India. But then, so that's a principle here, that Maya just wants to bury you alive and just make you discouraged. You can't do it, it's too hard. What are you kidding me? You can't become a pure devotee. You're going to preach to everybody and make them come on, what were you before? What kind of rock and roll music did you like? Hey, that's pretty cool. Why don't you try it again? Come on, just take a little peek in there, and see there's a whole new group of people doing it, and you'd be like respected like the patriarch, and so many tricks. Again, we're not as sincere as Srila Prabhupada. That's why. So Srila Prabhupada is our common great Maharati leader to follow and emulate. So let's do it, individually and collectively. Hare Krishna. Madhuraj Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki jai.